Hi, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Office Hours. It's great to have you here. We're here for you 7 days a week to answer your questions on media and production. Of course, you can get those questions into us via Makana. And if you don't know how to get in there, you can go to officehours.global/join. And Makana's great. You can ask questions, but also chat about the questions and vote on the questions. If you're not in Makana, never fear. You can just go to askofficehours.global. That's askofficehours.global, and that's open 24/7. So no matter when you have a question or if you're watching this later, pop open askofficehours.global, put in your name, put in your question, and we'll get it into the show. But let's get started because we've already got some stacking up. Alexander, what do we have?
First one this morning is from Oliver Breidenbach from Mimo Live headquarters. I recently learned about Stage Timer. It seems the developers have put a lot of effort into making this single-purpose thing. For theater and events people, is this still an unsolved problem, and is this a solution?
Go ahead, Jonas.
I think the only time when we don't use Stage Timer, or when I've seen people not use Stage Timer, is if they don't want to pay the price for it. Otherwise, I think it's basically solved. There might still be a market for like multi-track tracking, because right now Stage Timer is like a single track of events. That's where it's really great at. We use it in all our productions. Some people even use it as a rundown. We even built a little script into our vMix presets where on Companion we can press a button and then it automatically pulls the runtime of the currently running video and inserts that as a timer into Stage Timer. So we have perfectly synced countdowns to the next segment and all that. Yeah, I think it's a solved problem at this point. Price is the only reason, or like really specific access requirement is the only reason. But one of the cool things is you can also self-host or offline host the version that you have when you buy it.
Go ahead, Bill.
Inside a show or production, I think it really does solve almost all the problems that you have. It's been dependable, and I've been working with it for a lot of years, and it seems like it's really solid. The other thing that I do have, though, is atomic clock, and the reason I do that is here in the show, I need more than just local house clock. I need to know kind of what the actual time is, because here we have a panel of people from all over the world, and I want some reasonable idea of when the top of the hour hits for cues and things like that. So between the two of them, I think I have all my timing problems handled, but I would add atomic clock into the mix if you need to do that.
Jesse?
I think it's a good little app, but the real problem, the real wall we hit with timers like this is never in the technology. You can do this with a sheet of paper and a Sharpie. You can do it with an iPad and paid software. It's the people on stage, and sometimes the technology you need is an air horn and a cane.
Next question.
That resonates.
Next one's from the QR code. Marielle Jusha Miera and Wablo's asking, what in-ears were Snoop and Dre wearing for the Olympics? They were different than everyone else.
Bill, what do you think?
Well, I think at that point you're using custom ear modes and custom in-ear monitors. There, at some point you get away from using earbuds and things like that. I haven't because I'm not a full-time performer, but most of those, it combines a driver from one of the major manufacturers, and there's 2 or 3, Sennheiser does them, other people do them, the driver's inside. Then you go to an audiologist and get a custom ear mold made, and I think if you're working at that level of business, you also might have that custom ear mold either decorated or colored or something to make it a little more bling-like and fabulous. I would expect artists like Snoop and Dre to have long solved this problem, to probably have a half a dozen custom-molded outsides to whatever driver they prefer on the inside. You can do this, and it's not particularly expensive. My wife used to be on local TV, and one of the first things they did was send her to an audiologist so that her IFB ear molds could be done. And they specified the driver inside of that for their circumstances and the connection at the end of it so that it worked with their IFB system.
Go ahead, Alexander.
Yeah, I know a lot of people are using Ultimate Ears. They offer custom in-ear monitors, so you can really have a really bespoke look to your in-ears. I know a lot of I've seen people with diamonds encrusted on the in-ear monitor. So like there's all sorts of crazy stuff that you can do. So I would probably look at Ultimate Ears. It's, what is it? Let me just pull up the website here. There it is. So you can see that there. So they got all sorts of different styles, and you can really I don't know how much it is, but it's probably not cheap to have that custom made, but that's the way to go if you want something that's truly unique.
And it's one of those things. A performer that's live on stage is going to need in-ears. Most likely, you're going to see them with in-ears. So it's an opportunity to add in a little personal style, add in a little bit of how can I make this mine. The other thing I wanted to mention is if you look at the ears here, even on the cheap Linsoles I have, they have this little section that, right, is like Bill said, is hooking onto that driver, and so you can get a custom cable if you have a set that you like the sound for, but that the cable's too short or the cable's too flimsy or one of them goes out. You can get the cables for fairly inexpensively. And really customize that to whatever fits your situation. So, next question.
Next question is from Andre Delay in Berlin. We have to use GoToWebinar for an upcoming event. Is this a pure webinar tool, and can attendees be promoted to panelists for short contribution? Or does it have meeting character as well, with low friction for viewers to contribute?
Jonas?
I would say if you have to use a platform that you're not familiar with, treat it as a CDN. Put your production outside of the platform, then just treat that platform as CDN. In our productions, we define interfaces in our flow. So we have an ingest, we have an egress, we have the CDN. So we would just define this as the CDN. And then if you want last minute short contributions from attendees, then I would look into that. But most of the time, it's not worth the hassle and the additional cost, especially if the client knows the additional cost of having on video, on audio contribution, and Q&A tools are a good solve for that.
Yeah, and consider text contribution as well, because or depending on the situation, you may not have, as Jonas alluded to, control over the audio and video quality of the folks coming in. And when something's difficult to watch or difficult to listen to, people start to tune out. So another thing that you might consider is finding a way to get that audience contribution in more of an interactive way somehow so that they're contributing or asking questions over text. Next question.
From the QR code, Chester Sweeney in Las Vegas, Nevada. I saw a softube console 1 MK2 control surface on Sweetwater and wondered, how does softube compare to its competitors like Behringer, Yamaha, Rode, Sound Devices, Mackie?
Go ahead, Alexander.
Yeah, so it's a very different product. So this is more than just a control surface. So effectively, this thing works very tightly with their own plugin system. So it's basically designed to not exactly, but give you a feel of working on an analog mixer. So what you lost in the digital realm with, digital controls, you have access to sort of a channel strip layout. So you've got your parametric EQ and your compressor, and all these little buttons at the top allow you to select between different tracks. So you get a little LCD screen so you can see the waveform on here. And that it's a very cool product. Where I see people go wrong, where they become disappointed, is they buy this without doing a lot of research and think it's going to work smoothly in any DAW with any third-party plugin. So this thing is really designed to work tightly with their own softube plugin, which is built around a sort of SSL-style console sound. So just be aware of that. Over the years, they have improved compatibility with third-party plugins. I believe they have a specific list of plugins that they support that they know works well. So if you want to be able to control the parameters of the plugins with the hardware, you'll want to look at that compatibility list. And I believe the console control allows you to also control Universal Audio's console mixing software through the Universal Audio Apollo. So if you have an Apollo audio interface, from what I understand, this is the only control surface on the market that has direct integration with the Apollo audio interfaces.
Courtney?
Yeah, I haven't used this, but I just don't like the layout. I got over rotary controls about 25, 30 years ago and haven't looked back. And, these single single LED, or maybe they work in a graph that rotate to give you an indicator of what the setting is for each input channel. They're kind of hard to grok, especially on a field of them that are laid out like the equalizer is there. I kind of prefer the ones that are laid out more like a traditional, like the Behringer control surface, laid out more like a traditional mix panel that has your faders also built into the same thing, and then you do a channel select and then have your EQ controls all in one spot with digital readouts or an LCD, color LCD that has all the parameters shown at the same time. That's really, I think, a better ergonomic layout. The other one, I think they're just doing it to be a vintage look, and vintage looks don't really help in the operation of something.
Yeah, I'm going to boost what Courtney said. Having faders as opposed to little knobs it seems like a small thing, but if you're using it in a live environment and something goes wrong and you're trying to quickly diagnose what that thing is, the ability to quickly look, just glance over and know exactly where the channels are, what channels are up, what channels are down, do I have a problem? It's pretty powerful to take that friction out of your thought process. Alexander?
Just wanted to add and make something very, very clear. This product is not designed for live sound. So they also, and you can see this in the photo quickly, but they do make another product which has faders if you want fader control as well. But this product is specifically crafted for people that are working in music production in multi-track environments. It is not for live stuff. So it's a very different workflow.
Thank you for that. Next question.
Next one's from Clyde Loveford in Kingston, Jamaica. Thoughts on HDMI fiber versus SDI for small house of worship using an Atem Mini Extreme? Fiber HDMI cable connectors seem to get very hot over time and die in a few months. What can we do to prevent this, or should we just move to SDI converters and cables?
Go ahead, Courtney.
Just move to SDI. The problem with HDMI is the connectors are kind of dicey, the HDMI sides of the connectors. And of course, then the fiber is fairly delicate. You're running that fiber. If somebody runs over it with some steel-wheeled cart that's, pulling 20 cases of water on it, say goodbye to your fiber. It's a lot easier since they're, SDI cables are non-active, so you don't have to worry about the power delivery or the chips overheating in the plugs, which is something you were talking about in your question there, where they get hot and can fail because they all have converter chips built into each one of those HDMI connectors to convert and drive that optical fiber. So SDI is a lot simpler. Broken cables are a lot cheaper to replace, and they can be made custom length. That's the other thing. It's kind of hard to cut those ones that have the adapters that are automatically molded onto the ends of them. HDMI connectors, you got to buy them a fixed length, and you're stuck with that length.
Jonas?
I would say depending on where you need to run the SDI, you might want to consider doing a SDI to fiber conversion. Blackmagic has a couple converters that aren't super expensive. There are also HDMI to 12G SDI fiber converters from Blackmagic, the mini ones. So if you have a long distance and maybe you only have a little space or you already have optical fiber there, you could use that. Otherwise, just run an SDI cable. I don't think it's worth it replacing that fiber cable that often. One thing to keep in mind is it sounds like you already have replaced it a bunch of times. So it sounds like now it's probably outside the wall, or you're running it somewhere else where there's more traffic. So that at that point, if you want to do fiber, you want to get an armored fiber cable.
The other thing that I would consider if you're going to make the jump from HDMI to SDI is, depending on how many inputs you have and how far they need to run, it might behoove you to, instead of buying 6 or 8 pairs of HDMI to SDI converters, to just buy a new Atem Mini Extreme. So that way you have the SDIs built right in. You're not dealing with all those little points of failure and all those different things that could potentially have your connection break up. But you also get 2 more outputs, pardon me. So the HDMI Mini Extreme has 2 outs. The SDI one has 4. So as you're doing your cost calculation there, it might benefit you to go ahead and move to the Atem Mini Extreme ISO with SDI. Next question.
From Harold Williams in Portsmouth, Virginia. If we need to use an HDMI dummy plug-in our local computer to enable remote desktop, would we also need to use one in the cloud? What's the difference?
Jonas?
Yes, so generally that is a common issue in the cloud. You can use, for example, that's one of the reasons why we use Nice DCV. Nice DCV has a really nice virtual monitor, so that still activates the GPU and all that. It's one of the things that we thought in really early cloud production with RDP is that RDP, if you disconnect after a certain while, it stops rendering. The processes still run, but the UI process stops rendering. That caused some issues with some streaming. But with Nice DCV, that isn't an issue. Splash Shop, for example, also has a virtual monitor. Parsec has it. So there's solutions for that. You could use them as well on site, but those really work well for cloud where you have CPU-based computing and then you use the GPU to accelerate it. On the ground, we also use it to activate the GPU. Sometimes there's an issue with the GPU not staying active, especially if you're using consumer GPUs without HDMI or DisplayPort output. So that's why you would want to use a dummy plug on ground, but in cloud, yeah, same thing.
Next question.
Jack Cannon, Phoenix, Arizona is asking for interviews. What are your go-to pieces to include for set design? Couches, lamps, tchotchkes?
Go ahead, Jesse.
Well, first, yes, couches are okay. We don't love couches because half of the couches in the world have soft cushions that tend to eat the people sitting on them, and they just kind of keep sinking in throughout the course of a long-form interview. So if you do a couch, make sure that the cushions are quite firm and kind of constantly reinforced to push the talent towards the microphone. For lamps, absolutely, we keep, I can't show them all because we have too many lamps in this studio. Lamps are kind of like the aesthetic signature that you want the right lamp for the interview. So we keep a library of lamps that we can pull and use for any interview. And when it comes to tchotchkes, we do really like tchotchkes, probably too much so. We consider Harlan Quimby's writing room to be, in Knives Out, to be like the North Star of tchotchkes in an environment so that people have things to look at. If you do that, you do want to be on a 50 mil 1.8 for the interview so that when you're in close-up and when you get to the real meat of it, people aren't trying to, figure out what's behind them the whole time, that it just kind of fades into blurriness. And what we avoid are the calyx. This is in the background of pretty much every tech YouTuber's shot showing off all their equipment. It just has become as, kind of standard and predictable as the SM7B. So if you want your interview, if you're thinking about design, you want to move away from what is absolutely most typical across all videos, and that would be the calyx and the SM7B. And go a little harder. Production design is so incredibly important. Please respect the concept of production design and incorporate it even into the most basic videos you do.
Bill?
I had a slightly different thing. I used to collect all sorts of lamps and tchotchkes too, and we used them, but it turned out that every time I reached for one, I went, I used that in the other video for this ongoing client, so I really don't want to bring it back again because it'll make them think we're in the same place. So what I did is I went to the local furniture stores, not the high end, not the low end, the mid-level furniture stores. And we had a couple of them, particularly one that was really good with used office furniture. And I just went in one day and I said, hi, I produce videos. I'm always needing set decoration. How about we make a deal like this? I'll come in and put down my credit card and you can charge me for a bunch of stuff that I'll find on your constantly rolling stock of office furniture and lamps and stuff like that. then I will bring it back. And if I haven't damaged anything, would you give me 90% of the value back? You will have bought pizza for your crew and everybody's happy. It goes right back onto the show floor. And I had a surprising number of people say yes. So I felt like I had this rolling stock of stuff that I could go in and pick from anytime I had to dress a set like that. Worked really well for me. And I eventually ended up having 2 or 3 of the local merchants like that I had a relationship with. So this is a good place to build a relationship in your local area with the vendors who you don't want to go buy this stuff from, but you'd like to be able to use it for a while. That's an old tradition in movies of people going out and saying, give me this piece of hardware that I need for set decoration for this scene, but I don't want to buy it and store it in the back of my shop.
Courtney?
Yeah, a couple of things. Stools of different heights so that you can set your talent on them and not have a back interfering with the shot if you just want to have somebody sitting and you don't see them below the waist, to let them relax off camera or on camera. The other thing is you're going to have a couch or an overstuffed chair. Do not use leather because it will make funny noises when people sit or move around, and people will not know where that noise is coming from. The other thing is artificial plants. The plant that's behind me is artificial, and all you have to do is dust it every, 4 or 5 months. You don't have to worry about keeping them alive. You can get them in a whole wide variety. Look at these ones from Temu. These like $4.95. How can they do that? The Chinese are so ingenious, and they can look pretty real. Like I say, that one over my shoulder has looked the same for 20 years, and I just have to dust it every now and then. It never goes dead, never wilts, and never drops leaves onto the carpet. So, and a couple of, besides the artificial plants, some pedestals to put them on in the background. And you can also use them outside of windows to make it look a lot more realistic, and put a small fan on it that blows them a little bit, makes it look like much more real.
Yeah, it's and with all of this stuff, you don't want to overdo it, but bokeh is your friend. It can turn things that otherwise look a little junky into something that just feels and looks nice in the back of the frame. But the chat's been pretty lively on this one between Mickey and Kyle and Vic. We've been kind of going back and forth on, and Jack too. What are we trying to accomplish? What's the story that we're trying to tell? What you put in your frame and what you put in your set decoration or your production design is going to very much set the mood for the kind of message that you're trying to deliver and the kind of story that you're trying to tell. A lot of people, when they are trying to just have a generic Zoom background, there was a study at some point earlier this year or last year that was like plants and books. Plants and books is what you want. And so everybody has plants, and then there's, I think Alex might have spoke about it at some point this week about he had just books are really heavy. So when we were doing sets for people, they had just the 1 inch of books, right? They cut them. They cut them so that they could carry them in and put them on the shelf, and then everything's all good. But again, have them in your bokeh so that they're not reading your titles. But the kinds of things that you're going to put in a background for, say, like the thing that you're doing about interviewing veterans, Jack, is going to be very different from some other interview for an architect or somebody else like that. Bill, you had one more thing?
Well, I just wanted to add, the backdrop people do have flats or roll-up backdrops that are walls of books and things like that. So there's a way you can fake it that way if you want to do it. Yeah, I think that's enough. We've hit on this for a while.
Next question.
Paul Wallace in Austin, Texas. Best TV of the year, Bravia CE-a95L 65, according to Tom's guide. Do you agree?
Alexander, are you going to fight Tom for this one? What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know.
In that Sony
guide. Sony has different tiers of TVs, and for years they're known. If you're a TV nerd and you follow this stuff, their upper end of their OLED TVs are probably the best out there. They're not cheap. I don't know this specific model because I haven't been looking at them lately, but yeah, Sony has a reputation. If you look at their high-end OLEDs, they're some of the best TVs out there.
Bill?
I'm just getting to the point where I hope I never have to buy another TV. And here's the reason. Most of the TVs designed for consumer TV watching have so many things built into them that I have absolutely no use for anymore. I was kind of thinking to myself, what am I actually watching TV on? And the TV is probably third in line now after my iPad, after my phone. There are just so many other things that I have plumbed into my system now that I watch content on that are not traditional TVs with a tuner and worse, full of junk apps that you have to dig past on your menu to get to the actual content you want. What I really wish someone would make, and Apple, or I hope you're listening, or one of the other big manufacturers, is just a really good display that has a few aux inputs that are really easy to get to, so that all these other devices, the Apple TV, the Roku, the whatever, can be switched to. That's going to do all the tuner functions, and you get rid of all these apps. I don't need my fifth iteration of Netflix on another device that you're forcing me to pay for so that Netflix will subsidize the cost of the TV. I've never touched it. Last 5 years, I've never touched that version of the Netflix app because I have 3 others. It drives me nuts.
Courtney?
And they're on sale right now for $800 off at Best Buy. So it's a good OLED. My main criticism of it is maybe it comes with basically Google TV as its operating system. And my problem with a lot of TVs is because I have an antenna on the roof, and very few people do anymore. But when I buy a TV, I like to have a remote that has numbers on it that you can go to channel 13.4 or 13.2. And most of them have, an up, down, left, right, and they'll put up a guide, and then you got to go serially down through the guide till you get to channel 64.3, and then select it in order to go to it. You can't just punch in 64.3. And that drives me nuts because I like to channel surf, and these ones with the built-in digital interface as their operating system drive me nuts. But other than that, it looks like a good TV for the price. OLED, of course, you got to worry about burn-in, and you got to worry, so don't leave it on, MSNBC, CNBC, or any one of the financial news channels that has a permanent ticker up that's across the bottom, and walk away from it for a couple of days because you'll find that ticker there from then on.
And the office hours aphorism of the day: your TV should not connect to the internet for whatever. Just don't do it. It's going to find a way to sneak ads in there. We put an 85-inch Samsung in as a conference room display, and I wanted to be able to AirPlay to it. So I turned the Wi-Fi on, and it said, "Okay, well, you have to hook up to the network, or to hook up to Wi-Fi, right, so that you can run AirPlay." Came back, and immediately I got, this is coming up next. Here's what's going on on this channel and that channel. And then so we restored the TV. I went to the guys that I work with in IT, and I said, okay, here are all of the host names that Samsung's going to call on to receive these ads. Block them. Block them at the DNS level so that they can't resolve. The TV wouldn't enable AirPlay until it got that first little handshake with the ads. So forever, we have the ads for February 7th are on that TV because they won't update anymore. And Samsung has a ton of bloatware, but that's how the TVs get so cheap. I look at the TV in my I bought one of those frame TVs and was sorely disappointed because it's an edge-lit display, and there's a bunch of shadows, and the blacks aren't as... You see these OLED TVs, and you're just like... The blacks are so rich and so deep. It's one of the best pictures that I've ever seen. And for what it's worth, the Bravia, we put it in a different conference room. We did put in a Bravia that was running the Google OS, and it was a much nicer experience than what we had on the Samsung side. Go ahead, Courtney.
Yeah, one other thing I wanted to point out about Vizio. Watch out, because Vizio was bought by Target, so they now own Vizio, believe it or not. And they've done a recent firmware update to my Vizio TV in the bedroom. And I have an antenna on it so that I pick up all the local channels on it, and I have remote control with numbers on it. Well, after the update, they did away with tuning to the local channels. You have to go to live TV. It's a choice on the TV, and then it serves you up commercials. Plus, before you can get to your regular TV channels, and you cannot directly tune to any over-the-air broadcasts because they capture them, put them into a stream, and intersperse them with commercials because has to be hooked up to the internet. So, like you were saying, if you can avoid hooking it up to the internet, do, and then have a separate streaming box that connects to the internet that just plugs in over HDMI to avoid the TV from, taking over your remote control.
My new goal today is to find something that I feel as strongly about as Courtney does about the over-the-air channels. That's you got to tune them. I think the best experience
There's
I've had
178 channels coming in off that antenna in LA, and if you can't find something to watch in 178 channels, you're really desperate.
The best TV experience I've had in a while is when I hook my Apple TV into a projector. And it lamps on, and the picture shows up, and when I'm done, I turn it off. It's wonderful. Next question.
From Funsak Dorji in Dharamshala, India. Hi, panelists, asking for a friend. What do you think of this projector on Amazon at huge discount here in India?
Go ahead, Jesse.
Just so we can see what we're talking about, this is the projector in question. It's currently 88% off, and the vendor has, if we scroll down, hang on a tick, 20 ratings. This is a 90% off, 20 ratings, purchase at your own risk. This would be a great purchase if you run a YouTube channel that buys overly discounted things to kind of make content about the purchase process, what the thing actually is, and then how Byzantine the return process is, and how none of it met your expectations. Other than that, I would avoid this product.
Courtney?
Yeah, I wouldn't put it very high. 20,874 rupees is about $250, I think. And if you look at it, it runs on Android 9.0, which is 5 generations back of Android. So that tells you how old this projector is. And I would not believe the 4,500 lumens for a second. I don't think it's that price for for an LED light, which seems to be what it is because of the lamp life that it lists. So no, I don't think it's going to live up to those specs. I'd be wary, be very afraid, unless you can send it back and get your money back without any problems on Amazon, which you can do.
Bill?
And whenever I look at a projector, the very first thing I think about is what is the lamp replacement cost? Because I've seen projectors for $150, but if you jostle it while it's on and somehow the filament or something breaks in the lamp thing, the lamp replacement is $350. So look at the cost of replacing that lamp unit should you need to, if you want to buy a projector in any circumstance. Sometimes they're worth it. They're very complicated mechanisms to put that very high definition and bright light out, but they can be extremely expensive to replace the lamp.
Just a reminder, we are driven by your questions, which you can get into us via Makana, where you can chat about them and vote on them up and down. If we have a lot of questions, the voting's super important because it helps us drive the show. If you're watching this later or you get a question later, 24/7, you can go to askofficehours.global or hit the QR code right here, and that just lets you say name, question, and you're off to the races. Let's go to the next question.
Next one's from Douglas Carmichael. SSL will be introducing a cloud-based version of their System T mix engine. In the cloud mixing race, who do you think will win?
Alexander?
Well, I love SSL products. I mean, their consoles are legendary in the music production world. And of course, now they're also being used for live venues and immersive. So I sort of reject the premise of will they win because I really don't feel like one company needs to crush and obliterate and destroy all other. There's space in the market for different types of products, especially for this type of mixing engine. And obviously, they're not the first to do this kind of thing, but I'm sure it'll be a really cool product. It looks like it's going to be pretty neat. Obviously, designed specifically for immersive. I mean, it supports all those formats up to 916 monitoring. You know, everything you could possibly need: Dante Connect, audio transport, NDI conversion. So I guess we'll have to test it and see how well it works. But it is clearly aimed at immersive mixing. So I'll let others chime in on that.
Jonas?
I think there's a big race right now, and I mean, there's a couple that you can name. There's the whole you can do solid state logic, but what's interesting with theirs is more into the immersive, into, like you said, 9-bot, all the like crazy 5.1 and all that. What really it will come down to is, are they gonna have licensing that also works in the cloud? One of the reasons why the cloud is so great is because you can spin up and spin down instances. If big companies like SSL make you sign a 3-year contract for it, that benefit kind of is gone. So could I imagine something like the SSL being used for like mixing an opening ceremony or something like that? Yeah, totally. But like, they also have to figure out the pricing. Otherwise, I think the race is, there's a couple interesting. Aristo's engine is interesting because you can build your own mixer and you can build your own pipeline. If that's interesting, that's probably where I would go. And then the Llama audio on the lower end tier with high quality functions, but much more like a DAW that you're used to, I think is another great option that will attend a lot of people. And then what was the other one? What the other one is called? The plugin manufacturer. They really messed up their game by like making it a really expensive product, not letting you bring your own plugins. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see.
Next question.
Next one's from the QR code, Robert White in Jacksonville, Florida. Woohoo, I've decided to buy a digital mixer. What do you recommend for the best bang for the buck? Don't really need more than about 12 XLR combo jacks for youth groups, small local bands, etc.
Jonas?
If you need 12, you probably should at least buy 16, maybe 32. Because as soon as you, one of the things to keep in mind is what you want to do with the in and outputs. I would probably say an X32 and M32, that probably is the best bang for the buck you can get right now. There's a big sale on a lot of resellers on them. So great timing as well. One of the advantages, if you use an X32 on M32, is get Mixing Station. That's the #1 app that we use for all our mixers. It's great. Now you have a great interface. Keep in mind, if you buy an X32, you don't get an interface. If you buy the rack, you don't get an actual surface with it. So you might want to also invest into a Behringer X-Touch, or invest in one of those that actually has faders. But one of the great things if you get an X32 rack is you can put it where your ins and outs are, and then put your monitoring and control at the front of house. And that way you kind of have a stage box. Yeah, so that's what I would look at. I probably wouldn't look at the Soundcraft UI. They have some neat offerings, but a lot of the options that you have there are a little weird and outdated. I would probably go with an X16, XR16. That also has been pretty okay for the price. And but yeah, if you can, X32 is a good choice.
Alexander?
Yeah, I've been using a Soundcraft UI 24R for the last year, and I really like it. It's been rock solid. However, I would caution you, if you look at the Soundcraft UI series, the cheaper, smaller models, the 12 and the 16, have problems with both the power supply, which is under spec'd, and also the built-in Wi-Fi modem is not as robust as the 24R. And I've heard, there are lots of reports in forums you can see of people running those things for 24/7 and having a power cycle of them, and they stop working. The 24R has been a lot more stable of a product. I run mine 24/7. I've had it running for the last year. I've only had to restart it a couple times, but mainly because the power went out in my building, or I had to do a firmware update. So that one's okay. I would probably look at, if you don't need physical faders, I would actually suggest, instead of the X32, because that's an older platform and the preamps are not as good as these, the new Allen Heath CQ series mixers. And this one, actually, the CQ12 doesn't have enough preamps for you, so you're going to want to look at the CQ18. And that one has 16 inputs, and it has 6 auxiliary outputs on 1/4-inch TRS jacks. So that's what I would suggest looking at. It's quite affordable since you're in the US. $11.99 has a really nice touchscreen. Preamps definitely will sound better than the X32. And has a nice responsive touchscreen. Also, because it is a newer product, it has a much higher end analog to digital converters. They put a multi-track recording 24-bit USB interface on this thing. It'll go all the way up to 96 kilohertz, which you may or may not care about all out, but a lot of these mixers in this price range will only do up to 48 kilohertz. So that's one thing to consider. Also, it has an SD card, which the older M32 and X32 products, as far as I know, with the rack one, they don't have that. So you can record to an SD card as well. And it also has an app that you can control and get all the same functionality. It also has an anti-feedback wizard as well. So that's nice if you're not an experienced live sound engineer and you need to be able to get rid of your feedback. That is also a nice feature. So those are really great at that price point. They also have rack ears you can get and put it into a rack if you need to do that as well.
Courtney?
Well, I was going to recommend the Behringer X32 producer, which is the one that we were talking about that has the it's the rack mount information, the rack mount piece, and the control surface built into one. The problem with it is, with meeting your request, is it does not have combo jacks. It just has XLRs. So you would need some DI boxes if you're going to interface some instruments directly into it. But that, or perhaps the Yamaha DM3D, which is always a popular one, or without the D. It's a lot more compact. It's smaller. It also does not have combo jacks on it. It just has the XLR ends, I believe. That's another choice. But Yamaha makes some, I think those are non-combo jacks. So you would also have to get some DA boxes with that. But Yamaha makes a good product, and you'll be able to expand it too if you want to add more of those. That'd be great.
And I know not everyone is a fan of the X32, but whether we like it or not, it is seen almost everywhere you go. It seems like a very ubiquitous mixer that people just have, regardless of the venue that you go into. So besides the discount that it's currently on, or the sale is currently going on, the other thing to think about for the youth group or the small local band is that if you're bringing up a young person learning how to mix on one of these, it may help them be more comfortable when they go out into a local small club or another venue that has one of these in the shelf. So the ubiquity of this, it kind of seems like Mackie mixers back in the day. When you get familiar with the X32, it helps you go on to another venue. However, all that said, if quality is paramount, then the X32 might not be the one for you. Go ahead, Jonas.
And I mean, that's exactly the point. Like, this does sound like a volunteer situation where you might need to replace it in 5 years because people did not listen to how they should handle it. So that's also a thing to keep in mind. In the chat, Mickey mentioned the DM3 and the DM7C. And like, those are great options. And if you're like doing this to make money and actually like care about all of those things, I think that's probably what you should go with. But let's keep in mind that DM3 is twice as expensive as an X32. The DM7 is 10x expensive. If you need to replace it,
the DM3S, the one that I showed, is only $16.99, but it does not have Dante. If you go with the DM3D, the one with Dante built in, it's going to be about $1,000 more.
Next question.
From the QR code Chester Sweeney in Las Vegas, Nevada. Is there a speed difference and performance difference based upon if you prop your Mini on its side upright like a PlayStation 2 compared to flat with the logo facing the ceiling? I'm assuming that's a Mac Mini.
Jonas?
No, but there's a difference in heat consumption if you change the LEDs. So the first thing you want to do is lower the LED brightness, and then you should actually not like put it upright, because then you might have less air coming in on the sides. Some people have tried to add additional blower fans, but we found as soon as you lower the LED brightness to whatever it feels comfortable, just don't go above 50%. That actually helps a lot with heat. And after we changed that, we haven't seen a lot of issues with heat after you change that. Before that, you do see some issues.
Alexander?
Jester, I'd like to know if you're talking about what mini are you talking about? Because the first thing I thought was Mac Mini. Those things run really, really cool. Unlike the PlayStation, they don't have processors that run hotter than 10,000 suns. So you're not going to know. That won't have any advantage whatsoever. If it's an Atem Mini, that's a different story. It's always good to elevate those things. I actually have my Atem Mini in one of those 3D printed PK1 stands, which really helps the airflow as well. So again, maybe come back to us or go in Discord and let us know what mini you're talking about.
Courtney?
Yeah, I had the same response. I thought he was talking about a Mac Mini. Mac Mini you can stack vertically because the air intake's on the bottom of those. So, and it has that little footprint on the bottom that keeps the air vents off the surface. So that's another reason you don't ever want to put a Mac Mini on a bed or some soft surface that'll block the vents. But it doesn't require a lot of airflow. The Atem Minis exhaust out of the logo side, but you can't block the inputs, which are on the opposite side. So either way, if you're putting either the left or the right side against a surface, it's going to prevent airflow, and it could be a problem. So you want to keep it. It's designed to operate horizontally, not vertically.
It is worth, though, going ahead and getting some compressed air or something and blowing out the vents every now and again. I had one that had been, it was a 2012 or a 2014 Mac Mini it lived its life in a warehouse with fork trucks going in and out that were running on propane and diesel engines idling not far away. And they were just, the user kept saying, "Oh, this computer, it just runs so slow. It runs so slow." So we got him a new computer, and then we were recycling the old one. Well, I took it out of the recycle bin and said, "Well, I can figure something out with this." I took the bottom plate off and was astonished at how much dust and gunk and dirt had accumulated down in there. And a quick RAM replacement upgrade and a lot of compressed air and care of cleaning and breathe new life into it. So don't forget to clean them. Next question.
Jack Cannon in Phoenix, Arizona is asking, remotely switching 3 cameras in OBS via parsec. How can I use a streamdeck to remotely switch between scenes?
Jonas?
OBS actually is a really neat feature with that. So if you use Cloudflare tunnels, you can forward the WebSocket connection of the OBS to the public internet, or you can put Cloudflare access in front. You can even do this without having a Cloudflare account, but just using the free Cloudflare tunnels. We've done this for a big project a couple years ago. And the cool thing is you can just latch onto that WebSocket with the companion plugin, or there's like some tablet remotes that you can use for that. That probably is the simplest and easiest version. And then there's like other ways you could do where you then also have a companion there, and then you remote that. But with OBS, it's really simple because their protocol allows you to just pull out the WebSocket, and it's relatively speaking secure because you have a password and you can set it to only that you need to like a waiting room, that you need to accept the connection.
Next question.
From the QR code, Gene J. Anthony in Skokie, Illinois. What is the reputation of Ukrainian company Keepsolid's VPN products, including VPN Unlimited? Friends of mine use it to protect themselves, but I want to know the real tech rep and how protected they are.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with Keepsolid, so I can't comment on them directly, but just in general, if you're concerned about the data that is going over a VPN or that's going through a network, and you want to be sure that you're protected, talking to, like you said, a real tech rep, talking to a human, understanding what's the ownership of the company, how are they managing their servers, where are the servers located, and also looking at their reputation kind of online, or what people's experience has been. And the other thing that I'll leave you with, Gene, is think about how does the economics of this business work? who owns them and how do they make money? Because if it's a free product, then they have to be making money somehow. So are you the product? Is something else going on there? Just something to keep in mind. Really think, does the business model make sense? And when in doubt, go with something with a little bit more name recognition. But good luck. Next question.
Douglas Carmichael is asking, it's interesting that the Sony Bravias have a nicer experience than other smart TV brands. Can you install privacy protection softwares like AdGuard for Android?
And Bill?
I'm going to guess not. And the reason I'm guessing, I don't know for sure, but here's the deal. When the contracts are written with the broadcasters and things like that to put their apps on these TVs, it's not really a kickback, but there's a bounty that they get because they're able to put their content in front of the wider audience. Blocking that means that the reason they're giving you a better price on the TV goes away for all of their, quote, manufacturer sponsors who are putting these apps and things in there. So it really fights against their business model to allow you to defeat that. I notice on some of the over-the-top broadcasts of like network television that I see, rather than collapsing if they kill an ad, I will suddenly get a black screen that says content unavailable for the 30 seconds or the 60 seconds for that block that the broadcast network is paying for, but that the over-the-top service gets no revenue for. So I have holes. I mean, these just holes you have to wait through, and they don't want that. So I think they've built a system where they're trying not to let you skip ads, because that's supporting their model of TV cost.
Alexander?
Disconnect your smart TV from the internet. Always. Get yourself an Apple TV and make yourself a nice drink, and you'll never have a problem.
Courtney?
Well, if you're talking about YouTube, I use SmartTube Next, which is a separate app that runs on Android. So it'll run on Android. Some Android TVs will run on Fire Stick, and it'll run on Google's TV, or the old Chromecast with Google TV, which will probably run on the new Google TV, which is great because it removes all ads, and it not only removes ads from any streaming stuff like on YouTube, but it'll also skip over promotional stuff, common intros, things like that are, if you subscribe to something that has a 30-second intro that they play every time you go to that episode, it'll skip over that. It'll skip over self-promotion ads that are within side. And it has a lot more controls than the YouTube player or SmartTube Next. Google has been on the rampage to try and wipe it out. And it's been a little cat and mouse game going back and forth. Suddenly you'll see this error pop up that says 303 error, and it's that it can't tune any of the channels on YouTube. And then suddenly it'll push out an update, and the people that wrote it are very much on top of it. And they'll have an update within a few hours that will fix it whenever Google disables it, finds out where it's working, and changes a channel or changes a pathway or blocks it in some way. They'll figure a way out around the block and then come back, and it'll be working again. This has happened about 6 times in the last month. You'd have to do an update, and then after the update, everything's fine.
Bill?
Yeah, when I was talking about that, I was thinking of TV still as a live watch experience, like you're watching a breaking news or something like that, because it's very hard to fold time. If the real-time ad takes up 30 seconds, you can't really take that out of a stream as it's happening live. In store and forward systems where you're capturing this to some server in some place and then you're feeding it out to an audience, it is perfectly possible to skip all this stuff if the algorithm is smart enough to do that. So just to understand the game you're playing. If you're watching everything with a little bit of delay, it shouldn't be a major problem to get one of these systems to skip over content you're not happy about. I just use the skip forward thing on my TV remote, and it works for stuff I've stored. It's the live stuff that makes it very hard for that, and I'm still watching a good little bit of live TV these days.
And it's tough for me to put my finger on why do I feel like the Bravia is nicer when it comes to the experience. The only thing I can point to is it was not as aggressive at pushing those ads and being in my face about it. And I was able to make it just a nice television in a conference room as opposed to something where I'm seeing the local ads. One thing that I've done with mixed success is actually done something at the router level or with a pie hole that blocks the host's files for all of the advertisers. So if you Google Peter Lowe, Lowe, Peter Lowe's block list, there's a community maintained library of all of the different ad servers. And if you prevent your DNS from resolving those, then it can't get to those websites. It's almost as if they don't exist. But occasionally a website is broken because of that. But for the most part, it makes the internet a nicer place. So maybe check that out, blocking them at the router level. Next question.
Rion Smith in Trinidad, West Indies asks, Josh and I are working on a solution for ingesting RTMP from DJI drones. We were able to use nginx to receive and pass on the RTMP as a receiving server. The lag is consistently 3 seconds no matter what we try. Could it be that the sending remote is buff?
Jonas?
Yeah, I think the sending remote is probably buffering it. One of the common issues if you have transmission like that is that you have still a lot of jitter. There might also be a slight buffer in like sending and receiving on nginx, but there shouldn't be a lot of buffering there. We've seen it go really, really low. If you really want a low output, low latency signal outputted from a drone, you'll just need to buy the controller that has an HDMI or SDI output over RTMP. You always will have some latency because they not only buffer for the incoming instabilities, but also the outgoing ones. Most of those controllers don't have Ethernet, so they need to use Wi-Fi. So now you also have some latency added there where you want to buffer more, and then they go over the internet. So there's small buffering. Couple things to keep in mind. But yeah, I think 3 seconds is pretty good. And keep in mind it's a drone shot. You probably won't try to sync it perfectly up with your cameras. Use it as a great establishing aerial shot and just make it work with 3 seconds is what I would do. Probably doesn't matter.
Next question.
Ryan Rademan from Chicago, Illinois is asking, my FX30 is behind a teleprompter and hard to adjust pan tilt on. Is a cheap Amazon non-name brand option like this one under $100 risky? Will these usually provide sufficiently fine-grained adjustment?
We can wrap this one up before the top of the hour. Go ahead, Jesse.
Yeah, I think we can. We're going to take a look at the unit as described. It is less than 1/10 the cost of what you want to spend. I would argue less than 1/20th the cost of what you'd want to spend. And let's scroll down to the reviews. Doink, doink, doink. We got 23 reviews. This is great if you run a YouTube channel where you buy things that are way too cheap and then you review how inaccurate they are from the description from where you purchased it.
Jonas?
I would say you probably, like talking about risk, you probably don't have a risk there. Couple of things to keep in mind is those will probably have cheaper motors. They don't have presets most of the times. And with how the physics work out of that, often they also have an issue with sag, especially if you have a larger lens. One of the one that is cheaper that we have used is the BP 100. It's cheap. It doesn't have positionally, so you need to you only can do adjustments to the left and the right. But generally, it has been pretty okay. I'll put a link to that in the chat. But yeah, you probably want to spend more. That being said, if it's small adjustments, you can probably get something like that. Keep in mind, you also still need to fit it in your teleprompter.
And I'm in a very similar situation. I've got an FX3 sitting in a teleprompter right now, and what I ended up doing was I loosened up the head of the tripod just a little bit, so I have a little bit of play, and I actually took the control arm for the tripod and flipped it back around so that I can reach it from here. But also, if it's balanced correctly, so if you have it balanced correctly for your center of gravity, you should just be able to very gently reframe that way. We might be overcomplicating it a little bit to get the PTZ head in, because I've thought about taking a Ronin, for example, and putting it in the setup so that I can reframe and tweak things. And then about an hour into it, I was like, is it worth it? Or should I have just looked at a tripod head that had a little bit more play in it? But yeah, hopefully we get to see it very soon at an office hours near you. We do have some more things coming up this week as we get to the top of the hour. Tomorrow we've got our weekend Q&A, and then Sunday is our introspection show, where we like to spend a little bit more time talking about office hours and why are we doing what we're doing. Neither of those shows are recorded, so they're not DVR'd shows. And that way, when you tune in, you have to get into Makana, open up Makana, and then there will be a YouTube in Makana that'll allow it to play. Again, if you don't know how to get into Makana, you can go to officehours.global/join, and then you can sign up there. One more note about this weekend. On Saturday, we are not doing one of our regular monthly meetings after that. We do appreciate all the questions and everybody's support. And just a reminder to everyone that if you are watching Office Hours, you're liking what we're seeing, we are a nonprofit. We run on questions and generosity. So if you like what you're seeing, consider supporting us at officehours.global/donate. Thanks. All right, welcome back.